Hello everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are looking at something absolutely fascinating in the medical optimization space. Now you've probably been seeing this specific sequence of letters and numbers, CJC-1295, floating around everywhere lately. So today we're going to unpack exactly what this molecule actually is, how it functions inside the human body, and maybe most importantly, the strict biological baseline you need to have in place to actually benefit from it.
Here's our roadmap for this session. We'll start with an introduction to CJC-1295, break down the DAC mechanism, explore the strategy of stacking, and navigate potential side effects. After that, we'll cover the non-negotiable lifestyle foundation and then wrap the whole thing up with dosing and final takeaways.
All right, Section 1. Introduction to CJC-1295, the molecular foundation. Let's get into it.
So by definition, CJC-1295 is a growth hormone-releasing hormone, or GHRH analog. Now, what does that actually mean for you? Basically, it's a synthetic compound designed to perfectly mimic the hormone your body naturally produces to signal the release of growth hormone. But the reason it is so incredibly popular in clinical circles stems from one key advantage: its ability to raise both growth hormone and IGF-1 with remarkable sustainability. Seriously, when you compare it to other growth hormone peptides, like sermorelin, for example, CJC-1295 provides a uniquely stable elevation, and that makes it a highly sought-after tool for anyone looking to truly optimize these biological pathways.
Structurally speaking, this molecule is incredibly precise. It's based directly on the active region of natural growth hormone-releasing hormone, specifically the first 29 amino acids. But scientists didn't just copy nature here. It's amazing how they actually improved upon the sequence's stability. By tweaking it just a bit, the peptide powerfully resists biological degradation. And because it survives longer in your body, this modification significantly increases its binding affinity to receptors, extending its overall duration and really boosting its raw potency.
Moving on to Section 2. Understanding the DAC mechanism, precision and half-life.
Okay, so DAC stands for Drug Affinity Complex. Adding this complex fundamentally changes how the molecule behaves once it enters your system. The DAC essentially allows the peptide to bind directly to circulating albumin, which is a protein found abundantly in your blood. Honestly, this is a brilliant piece of bioengineering. By attaching itself to albumin, kind of like hopping into a taxi cab in your bloodstream, the peptide is shielded. That drastically increases its half-life, turning what would normally be a very fast-acting molecule into one that lingers for a much, much longer period.
So as you can see, there's a very clear biological choice to make here. With the DAC version, because it binds to that albumin, its half-life is extended to literally last for days. This allows for longer growth hormone stimulation and means much less frequent dosing for you. However, the big trade-off is that this constant, steady release does not mimic the body's natural rhythmic growth hormone pulses. On the flip side, the without DAC version is specifically designed to produce those more natural physiological pulses of growth hormone. You definitely get less duration, but you maintain a much more biologically normal rhythm.
All right, Section 3, the power of stacking, dual pathway stimulation.
Now this is where the magic really happens with synergistic mechanisms. Notice we're talking about two distinct pathways. CJC-1295 binds to the growth hormone-releasing hormone receptor on one side, while a peptide like ipamorelin comes in and binds to the ghrelin receptor on the other side. By hitting both of these distinct pathways simultaneously, you get a massive compounding effect. This dual stimulation theoretically leads to a significantly larger growth hormone pulse than you could ever achieve by just using either peptide entirely on its own.
But listen, there is a very specific use case rule you absolutely need to follow if you go this route. The clinical recommendation is quite clear. If you are combining CJC-1295 with ipamorelin, you should choose the without DAC version. Why is that? Well, because you want optimal control of your growth hormone peaks and troughs. If your CJC-1295 has DAC while you're stacking it, you're going to create a massively amplified growth hormone pulse that lasts way longer than normal. You lose all that nuanced control of physiological pulsing, which can easily push your body right out of its natural balance. Let's move to Section 4, navigating side effects. The reality check.
Look, whenever you are manipulating hormones, the body can and often will push back. If you're considering these pathways, you need to know exactly how your system might respond. General side effects associated with this specific class of peptides include things like water retention, paresthesia, which is basically a tingling sensation, often felt in your hands or feet, as well as joint discomfort and, naturally, some injection site reactions. It is absolutely vital to understand these physical responses, because they are just your body's way of reacting to the sudden influx and stimulation of your growth hormone pathways.
And this right here brilliantly illustrates why adding that drug affinity complex, the DAC, might increase the prevalence of side effects in some users. It is literally a domino effect. Step 1. The DAC causes a much longer, sustained growth hormone pulse. Step 2. This leads to chronically high growth hormone levels in the body. Step 3. That chronic elevation directly triggers chronically high IGF-1. And finally, Step 4. Chronically high IGF-1 can lead to raised fasting glucose, ultimately paving the way for insulin resistance and, potentially, diabetes. It's a powerful cascade that demands respect and caution.
Section 5. The Lifestyle Foundation. The Biological Baseline.
So the absolutely crucial point we need to make here is that simply raising your growth hormone chemically does not substitute for these 4 pillars. You have to nail your sleep quality, you have to maintain proper caloric control, your diet has to include adequate protein intake, and you must be engaging in regular resistance training. If you actually want to maximize your results and mitigate your risks, you have to do all 4 of these mandatory interventions. I want to let this sink in for a second. Lifestyle is still the backbone of all interventions. It doesn't matter what pharmaceutical tools you're considering. Fundamental human discipline has to precede chemical optimization. You simply cannot out-inject a poor lifestyle.
Finally, let's jump into Section 6, Dosing and Final Takeaways.
So what do the actual numbers look like? When administered properly, typical subcutaneous dosing for CJC-1295 sits right around 100 to 300 micrograms per injection.
But the schedule is what really sets it apart. It's a real game changer. There's a stark contrast in injection frequency here. Because of how it's structured, CJC-1295 only needs to be injected 2 to 3 times per week. Now compare that to a peptide like ipamorelin, which normally requires injections 2 to 3 times per day. That makes CJC-1295 a significantly more manageable protocol on a weekly schedule for most people, saving you from a massive amount of frequent pinning.
However, before you even consider mapping out a schedule, we need to cover a firm, non-negotiable medical disclaimer. You should only ever make these kinds of medication additions or significant lifestyle changes with the strict advice, supervision, and consent of your primary treating physician. Hormone manipulation is incredibly complex and it's highly individual, so do not go rogue on this stuff.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative question to close out this explainer. I want you to really think about this. Are you seeking pharmaceutical optimization before fully mastering your biological baseline? Be totally honest with yourself about your sleep, your diet, and your training. Challenge yourself to build an unbreakable lifestyle backbone first, so that if you do choose to optimize down the road, your body is actually ready for it. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I will see you in the next explainer.